Well, let's build a race bike. Alright, so go ahead and get started. For whatever reason, the GoPro didn't record any of the audio for about 1 terabyte of footage, but we're going to go ahead and get into it anyway. So 2017 YFZ, just kind of give you a little bit of walk around. It's got GBC tires on it, Goldspeed wheels, B&R springers, Hauser long travel front end with the LTR billet spindles, RJR bumpers. I did notice that the spindles, you can see in this clip right here, how low that the ears are on the back of them. So you'll see what happens later. Why, at least in tight XT trails, that's a terrible idea. So we found out this past weekend. So this is just the build kind of leading up to that race. You can see we got a Hauser +1 stem, oversized tank with a dry brake, flex bars. We're going to go ahead and put some new cables on there. You can see the cables are super tight on the bars. So we're going to go ahead and put +1 clutch cable and throttle cable. You can see the motor B&R head, stage 2 cams from Hot Cams, or the B&R grind. It's about the same thing from what I was talking to them. It's got greasable fitting for the swing arm. It's also got Hauser XC linkage with their triangle. So that's the greasable triangle on there. Pro Design intake. That's just the stock intake right now. Intake tube does have B&R revalved stock shock, and it's all set up for 165. I'm about 175 right now, so it's going to take a little bit of tuning. Usually that's not too far off, but it's more the handling. So you'll see that later on, maybe in another video. The handling on this thing just for tight woods trails was no good. So that's the 24-volt kit right there. I'm not going to be using it. The anti-gravity battery in there, I had surgery, and I honestly didn't mess with anything for about 6 months, and the anti-gravity battery died. I should have unplugged it. I didn't have an arm to unplug it with. So that's about $180 battery gone. So we're not able to run the 24-volt kit for this race, but next race I'll definitely have it hooked up. So you can see the R5 there. We're going to go ahead and replace the Yoshi. So it's not that I don't like the Yoshi. The only thing I would kind of say is that the canister is really large. So this canister that's on this bike actually already has a big dent in it where the rear caliper is. So we're going to go with the Rossier R5. I've had some good conversations with David. So I had a customer that had a problem with an old pipe that he didn't even buy, and literally all it took was one phone call. And shortly after that, they came out with the R5. It looks like a good system. It has no mid pipe. It's one solid pipe. So that's the exhaust we're going to go with. So you can see the Euromostly throttle right there. Whenever you have multiple bikes that you do ride, it makes it a lot easier to transfer bike to bike, is what I have found. So you can always put the throttle in exactly the same spot as the other bike is. RJR heel guards, that's just a Recluse cover for now. The actual Recluse is on the table. It's going to be the CX series. So the one that adds an extra fiber plate, gets you a little bit more grab. And also, I think it's easier to install with the inner ring because you don't have to put pressure on the actual basket. And if you've ever installed one, you know that those Allens can eventually sometimes strip out if you're not really, really careful. So with the CX series, it has that inner ring you'll see later that spins. And honestly, it was a super easy install. So that's the cables I was talking about earlier. Might try to move that brake line, flip it around so it doesn't have that weird bend in it. You can see you got the Hauser clamps. Those are universal clamps, so you can either mount 7/8 or the 1/8 inch bars in there. So a lot of good parts on the bike. We're just going to have to work through it and kind of set it up for exactly my ride style. As far as mods go, so we have the Fuel Customs intake right there, and we're actually going to go with the stock box. I've seen a couple people have good luck with it, just cutting it. And that's the two most popular filters. I'm sure you all have seen it on the Facebook forums. There's always an argument which filter works better, so we're just going to try both of them in this one. That's some heat shields for the airbox and the new tail light, VP110 underneath that. So we're just going to kind of slice and dice it. I was actually in a little bit of a hurry, but it turned out okay. You'll see later in the video. Got the gold chain, the HG chain, new sprockets front and rear, and those are going to be surrounded by the B&R sprocket guards on either side. So new taillight cover. I usually just slide a piece of plastic in there to cover the taillight portion. I had a HMF delete. I just didn't like the empty look of the back. Forworks makes a really nice carbon fiber one. That's the. I thought that was originally a stainless line for the rear, but it's actually a black one for the front. So we're not going to install that this time. We'll wait until next time. It already has a stainless line on it. So honestly, this was a rushed thing. 2 nights before the race, let's throw $4,000 at the bike and see if we can make it out there. So I think the black wouldn't look bad right there. But that'll be a later video whenever we go over some cosmetic stuff. So this video is literally just get it to run, make sure it's going to be reliable on Saturday, and this was Thursday night putting it together. So right there you can see we have the Gland Innovations K-Saver. The chain guide is actually already on the bike. I removed the swing arm probably before my surgery a long time ago. So I forgot to add to this pile, we can't forget the Forworks foam. So this seat cover actually got torn up by a dog. It was for a different bike, but the pan was still good. So we got I believe it's like memory foam. It's a little bit thicker. It's a little bit more dense than the stock stuff. Maybe better, maybe worse. I don't know yet. Still got to test. So what they do suggest putting a stock cover on first. So I actually saw on Facebook somebody didn't install a stock cover, and you can see all these seams in the cover right here, and it'll cut through it, and you'll have cracking, and then water will sit in it, and it'll probably mold, and you just don't want it. So we went ahead and grabbed a silver stock cover off of Facebook. Luckily, only like $25. Go ahead and put that under the Forworks cover. Go ahead and protect the cover and protect the seat. All right, so first item on the list, we're gonna go ahead and get the oil changed. This oil probably only has maybe one ride on it, maybe half a ride, but it's been in there over 6 months, so it needs to come out. So you'll see me grab a wrench because I'm weak, and also I don't want to break the tab off. So go grab monkey wrench. All right, just a small turn, and back in business. So we're going to go ahead and open that up, make sure it doesn't slow the oil down. And we didn't have time to heat this one up. The bike actually isn't fully together. It doesn't have a clutch basket in it, so we're not going to start it without the clutch basket in it. So on the YFZ, 2 drain plugs. So we got our wobble. So go ahead and get the back drain plug out, and then we're going to work on the front after that. All right, there's our front drain plug, and we're going to go ahead and check the crush washer on both the front and the back. So any creasing, any kind of discoloration, anything that's uneven, if there's something got stuck in it while it got tightened, just go ahead and replace them. Rocky Mountain sells them in a full kit, less than $10. It'll save you in the long run. So the factory ones, if you want a factory one, that's cool. I think they're probably $4 or $5 a piece. So just up to you. So let's go ahead and get started on the Recluse install. First step is we're going to go ahead and remove this arm and the clutch cable. We're not going to be using that cable. We are going to reuse this clutch arm. Whenever I pulled the bolt out, I noticed it had been way over tightened, so the bolt is actually bent. But just grab a new bolt, put it back in there. But with a Recluse, it's always step one, take all the tension off the cable. So you can see the bend in that bolt. Somebody tightened the hell out of that one. So now we're going to take our cover off. This was just a dummy cover from another clutch. It's only got 2 bolts in there, just to make sure dust and make sure oil didn't drip. This bike was actually pretty overfilled. So whenever I took the clutch cover off the first time, it poured oil out on the floor. So you shouldn't have to do that. Sometimes if you just lift up on the peg or lift up on the tire just a little bit, that'll be enough to keep all the oil in the motor. Alright, 2 bolts, and you can see our ball right there in the shaft, so you just want to make sure that's still in there. So we'll just push it back in there. So we do have a Henson basket for this setup. There's Henson basket. It's still the 3 bolt. Maybe if I ever have any problems with this one, I'll upgrade. For now, it's been doing fine. All the back of it's pinned, so hopefully no issues. But with this one, this is a big mess up with people. So it has that first kind of notch. You kind of feel it. This is me rotating the basket, trying to get it to drop in more. You would think that was it, but there's a good way to tell. Go ahead and take your thrust washer, which on this one, it's going to be the skinnier one. So the 13 and up, not the 09. It's a little bit fatter. So there's our thrust washer. Put it on there, slide it to the back. And I've always found if it doesn't spin free, then the basket isn't all the way on. So we'll go ahead and just pop it all the way off. Rotate our oil gear just a little bit. See if we can match up the teeth. So rotate it over just a little bit. Remember you're pretty much rotating the piston at that point, so it's going to have some tension on it. Try it again with our thrust washer. And nope, round 2 fail. So let's see about round 3. Alright, so took the basket out, maybe got one more tooth over on the oil pump gear, and you can see our thrust washer spins free. So move on to the next step. That's going to be the inner basket for the Recluse. And you can see what I was talking about earlier, that inside ring is actually what controls the engagement. So there's no need to fight under tension now, which is a really, really easy setup. And I didn't have the Recluse special locking thing, so I took a stock one, cut it up. We'll get the Recluse one later. I was just trying to make it to the race this weekend. All right, so a little bit of modification. We got the stock one to work. Just for this race, we'll buy the Recluse one, maybe two of them, just the next time. So there's our locking nut, and just make sure with the instructions, because whoever had the previous clutch, not this CX clutch, but the older version, whenever I pulled out the thrust washer, it was actually crushed almost completely. It was sharp enough to shave with. That's how much it got crushed. And all that was somebody over tightened the basket, whether it was an impact or whether they just went by the factory spec. So factory spec is only 54 on this, but for Recluse suggests 50. So that's what we're going to go with. Get the torque wrench out, and we're going to torque it to 50. All right, so here you can see that I try to tighten the basket down, but it still spins because it's Recluse. So we're going to wait until we get the chain and all on, see if it puts a little bit of tension on the basket. That way we can tighten them down. So go ahead and get our oil filter out, and do not forget these washers. The last YFZ motor build I did, that bottom washer fell out whenever the customer was changing it. Went to the trail, wasn't paying attention. It literally sprayed out like a water hose, all the oil all over the bike. And for whatever reason, he might not have noticed it, and it locked the piston up. So it melted it on two sides, just way too much heat. So don't make that mistake. It was very. So this one we're gonna go AMSOIL 10W40. So this is what I'll be buying from now on for this bike. I really do think it makes a difference over like conventional like Yamalube. I do put Yamalube in most of the for sale bikes, just because the customer, everybody has their own personal preference. So YFZ, we're going to start with about 1400 cc, and then whenever we do get to start it up, we're going to double check the level. Time to get our sprocket installed. So that's our Glan chain guide. We're just gonna rotate it, move it out of the way a little bit, just so it'll make it easier for us to get our sprocket on. Go ahead and get the front sprocket off. And for that, it is in gear, so a little bit of resistance, and then we're just gonna hit it with an impact. So don't forget your washer. And whenever you do change sprockets, gearing, chain, whatever it is, just go ahead and change the whole set. It's not much more, and the parts will wear better. If you've ever seen somebody with a chain jumping around, usually it's something like that. They didn't replace everything at once, or just it's so. So we got the front sprocket just barely on for now. We really need the chain on to tighten it fully so we can kind of hang on to the rear tire. So let's go ahead and get the quad up in the air a little bit so we can get this B&R guard off on both sides, and then get our sprocket out. got our gold HD chain. It's supposed to have a little bit higher tension, braking tension. So we're gonna go ahead and try to get that on.
Switch.
End up being just a little bit short, so we're gonna have to adjust the carrier. So we'll go ahead and get our Allens out to adjust that. So for whatever reason, this second one was on there. That these only torqued to 18 foot-pounds. That was more like 50. And you can see this last one. I always use this wobble. I've been doing it for 4 or 5 years. No issues. I got grease on my gloves. Please hold. All right, got the wobble on there. And for whatever reason, this bolt on the end, it would not budge. I almost questioned if it was going to break. So you can see right there, bam. There goes probably $30 Allen. Luckily it's Snap-on and they will replace it. So just a pain. So we're going to go ahead and get the brake caliper off so that way we can get the full-size Allen in there. Chain's on, so we're going to check our tension. The YFZ, I believe, is like 1.3 inches. So we're just going to kind of wiggle it up and down. Go ahead and put our punch in the left side if we need to adjust it. I think this one only needs to adjust just a little bit. And then we have our chain tool. So we're just going to use that to make sure the master link is fully pressed through. That way we can get the cap on. Alright, so rear sprocket's on, it's tightened down, all red Loctite on all of those. So now it's time for front sprocket, and that one is 72, I believe. So we're going to jump on, and we're going to hold the rear brake. You can hold the front brake too if you can get a hold of it. And then we're going to torque the front one, then we're also going to ping it also. So it has 2 slots in there, so we're going to just tap it lightly with a punch to bend one of those angles down. And this is where I realized I was wrong. So the Recluse, no matter what, you hold the brake down, anything, the basket's still going to spin. So the bike is in 5th right now. So we're just going to take our clutch tool and just slide it in between the basket, no pressure on the tool itself. But we're just going to use it to kind of hold the basket, and then we can tighten down the springs. And these springs are 9 foot-pounds in the Recluse manual. All right, finally done working on the ground. So we're gonna go ahead and take the plastics off. We're gonna do our ASV levers. So fully adjustable levers. Both have dust boots. Go ahead and get our plus two cables on either side. I ended up not moving this brake line for now. Maybe later I will. It actually kind of cleared the bars once everything was back in place. But go ahead and get the plastics off.
Swipe left, someone said something stupid. Swipe right now, I'm watching what you did. Power down now, I'm at a disadvantage. But I think that it's worth it. I put my headphones on, I play my favorite song. I go to sleep and try again. Mama used to try and tell me no man is an island, but I think I feel like drifting away. Mama used to say tomorrow never comes, so make the most, but I think I am done with today. Think I am done with today. Boss says, man, you gotta make an effort. Feel like all I do on earth is just say yes, sir. And when I tell people how they make me feel, they treat me like a leper. I put my headphones on, I play my favorite song. I go to sleep and try again, again. Mama used to try and tell me no man is an island, but I think I feel like drifting away. Mama used to say tomorrow never comes, so make the most, but I think I am done with today.
So go ahead and get our Urmosi mounted up. We're gonna remove the bottom clamp. And we're gonna go ahead and put it on the bars, but we're also gonna grab our grips and make sure all the spacing is right before we get anything too tight. So for grips, we're going to use the ODI lock-ons, the Rogues. So I was kind of deciding if I could run the 130 millimeter. They're a little bit longer, a little bit more hand room. I really wanted them on the bars. So in the end, we had to do a little bit of adjusting, a little bit of turning, but I was able to fit the 130s on the bars, get a little bit more hand room. Get our levers going. These are the ASV F4s. So I usually go with black with the red adjusters. I really like those ones. And then we always add the dust boot for your brake leather as extra. So we're gonna pop our dust boot off. That part goes on the cable. And then we're gonna pop the dust boot off the lever also. You have to take that off for the cable to go on. So putting this lever on the bar, I actually found out this kill switch, it was turned the wrong way to begin with. I really think it should be towards the rider just so it doesn't get stuck. So we're going to rotate around, and now you see the flat side is where the clutch adjuster goes. So we're going to rotate the start switch upside down also. The wires always go on the bottom. I see some people run them over the top sometimes. And if you do that, whenever you turn the steering, especially lock the steering one way, it'll rub the bars and it'll rub a hole in any kind of coating that it has, and then it'll start to make a dent, probably a dent in that plastic for the kill switch. But you can see kill switch is rotated the right way, plenty of room for that adjustment nut. And then we're gonna make sure the grip clears. So that's our 130, the ones we wanted to run, and it just fits. So I'll take it. Alright, day 2, got started on the intake. Here's the old one. It's a Pro Design, so you can see right there the billet adapter. Stock intake, this was plugged because it already had a breather box. So I tried to do the stock intake, or stock air box this time. The Fuel Customs, it's not like the best for a foam filter. I did find out if you cut about 3 inches off the Fuel Customs, it actually fits really well. But I didn't have one in stock, so I went ahead and tried the stock one. I might run it and just see kind of after the races. I still got some plastic from the cut marks and stuff, but just run it and see if it gets a lot of dirt, gets a lot of water in it. We might go ahead and order the Fuel Customs. I'm not 100% on this kind of setup. I know a lot of guys run it, but we'll see what happens, especially after this race. Go ahead and get the support reinstalled, and then this is a new filter, but we're gonna take it back off, oil the yellow one, and oil the outerwear. So after that, I believe put the exhaust on. So something a little bit more entertaining. So we had 2 filter options. One is a uni that just somebody grabbed the number off of that seemed to be the right diameter, the right length. With this stock airbox setup, the filter is just kind of too long for it. We could probably wedge it in there and kind of like crunch it, or cut the back of this stock airbox, which I might do in the future, just not this time. So for now, we're just gonna stick with the Pro Design. It's a little bit smaller, you can see, so a little bit smaller. The only thing I don't like about the Pro Design is it has this really small lip on it. I like this other filter because it has a good inch there that you can clamp it down. But we're gonna run this one this time, and then maybe whenever we get back, try to modify this box a little bit more, or just go ahead and buy the Fuel Customs.
Over the edge, feel like I'm floating through the air. The pain I felt is paid for, all is said and done. Oh, I am restricted, fixed Burning the bridge that keeps us. I'm here and I'm feeling fearless. Exaggerated, that's what you assume. The story's over now, I must conclude. I am conflicted, watching where I step still, hanging in the balance, not the life I want to live. I want to take it all, standing tall, fear outweighed the person you are. Oh, break out, I've got to see. Spent all my life holding all of it closely. I played it in a sense, a feel of discontent. I'm finally facing it all, fearless.
Alright, so we're to probably everybody's favorite part, including mine. I'm going to go ahead and install the exhaust. This is the Rossi R5. Hoping it's a little bit louder than the Yoshi. Probably a little bit more power also. A little bit more free flowing. So we got our new exhaust gasket. Go ahead and cut the tip of that head gasket off. Looks like it's kind of in the way. I just bend it down just a little bit, if it'll bend. Alright, we'll just tighten it down, see what happens. Alright, so we got clear. So you can see the canister's a little bit smaller, so hopefully you don't get that dent. Pretty much all the larger exhausts have eventually whenever you bottom it out. It's only a 1 bolt, so slide our clamp on the right way. And then we did leave the header pipe just a little bit loose just to line everything up before we torque everything down. So we're going to put just a dab of red Loctite on this bolt before it goes in. That was actually the Yoshi bolt, so it was a little bit long. So then I tried the bolt, and it's also too long. So I ended up grabbing one from a Rocky Mountain kit. So they're good kits to have, the M6 and M8s. I mean, I probably order them at least 4 times a year just to have extra bolts on hand. So go ahead and loosely tighten our muffler. We're not going to torque it all the way down yet, just in case that header pulls on it a little bit. So bolts loose, check our header. Then we're going to torque our header down. So we're just going to make sure it's even. Brand new gasket. Make sure we crush it in there evenly. Alright, so that's looking good. Torque our muffler down, and believe that's it for that install. So the Rossier, I did notice the flange up by the motor. It's a lot thicker. The one-piece design is nice. There's plenty of clearance back by the foot peg. Sometimes a lot of exhausts have that problem where they're right up against that mount. So this flange, actually, whenever you torque it down, with a lot of them, you'll get a lot of bend, and then they only fit that bike, and if you ever take them off, it'll be a pain to get back on. So final step with any new exhaust, I usually get a little bit of rubbing alcohol, lint free rag, and just go ahead and wipe the whole pipe down. All the assembly oil, your finger oil, like the fingerprints, anything on it, just go ahead and get all that off. That way, we all like the purplish, red, yellow, whatever color green you get out of your pipe. But if you have oil on there or you have fingerprints on there, it'll burn them into the pipe. And I mean, at that point, there's no really getting it out. And if you do get it out, the pipe probably won't turn the purple and green like we all like to see. So if you get it clean, you should see some heat around the bend first, and then around all the welds. So that's what we're looking to do. Just go ahead and clean it off. All right, so let's get the first startup going. Turn it over, give it a little bit of gas, and boom! If y'all have never installed a Recluse, rolling it back and forth does nothing now. So it is actually still in 5th gear. Remember that one time whenever we put it in 5th gear to tighten the front sprocket? So luckily, the Recluse was adjusted right, and it didn't take off through the shop, because that would have been pretty bad. But I'll splice in a clip right here. Probably an assembled clip, just because we lost the audio, and I'm not gonna snake y'all like that and just listen to nothing on a first startup. Just like that, we're back. So if you want more race clips, have to check on the next video. Should be out pretty soon. And just in case that R5 did get the whole shot, just in case you missed it. So take this over to the vise, knock a hole in that one, drill it out, and then we can get our Forworks pedal installed. Here we go. Seat cover install. Got our Forworks foam. We're going to stretch the stock seat cover over, always front and back first. And then we're going to put a little test staple in, just one at the front, a couple at the back. Don't really worry about those right now. They might get removed. But you always start with the first corner. So from the back, start with your first corner, stretch it just a little bit. Don't worry about all the wrinkles just yet. Next corner would be that small part before it goes to the front. And then we're going to worry about the middle, get the middle stretched over. And then at this point, sometimes you need to remove your front staples and just adjust just a little bit. On this one, I think it was pretty darn close. So I just went ahead and stretched it just a little bit more to complete the stock install. And I did space the staples out probably 2.5, almost 3 inches. I wanted to make sure that my Forworks cover had enough room to grab. I didn't want to be stapling over staples and then keep on hitting each other. So Forworks cover, same thing. We're going to stretch it over the front. Go ahead and put a test staple in. And then we're going to flip it over. Get 2 on the back ears. I think I might have missed. I went ahead and grabbed my my pliers and my screwdriver just in case I miss one. I can pop it out. So also a big help was this stretch hose from Harbor Freight. So it's got pivots on both sides. That nail gun is either Harbor Freight or Home Depot, but it does have the stainless steel staples that they suggest on all the cards they send. So here we go. Not too worried about the wrinkles in between, but we don't want a bunch. So go to the next corner, flip it over, make sure it's straight. So one more test spot. Then we're going to make sure our cover's still even. See how much we need to grab out of that one. That staple on this side actually backed out. So go ahead and pop that one out, and we're going to get a new staple in there. So you can see I pulled back right there, and I saw the wrinkles disappear, so I knew I was good to go. Make sure we're not making anything crazy, especially where the ribs are. So this one was pretty tight on there. All the covers fit just a little bit different. Sometimes you got to change your technique just a little bit to make sure it's even. So we're going to go ahead and get our cables installed here. So this one has a breather box by 38 Motorsports. It mounts down by the radiator. It made it a little bit more challenging to feed the cables in, but not too bad. It just took a few more seconds just to feed them in. Always with new cables, I go ahead and lube them. These seem like they had enough room in between the cable. Just kind of moving the cable up and down, working the lube down in there. After that, they should be good to go for a couple races. That we did get the ASV levers. Both sides have dust boots, so that should help us out, keep dust and dirt out of our cables. All right, get our throttle cable. Then we're going to go ahead and finish installing the Euromosi throttle. We already did the spacing out on the bars for our 130 millimeter grip. We got our front brake lever just kind of hanging out of the way for now. We're going to look down there and make sure the brake and throttle cable aren't twisted. We want all the clearance we can get and make sure they're not wrapped around the brake cable either. So here, just kind of swapping them up. I believe I did the throttle cable on top because it comes out first. So that's the one that I put on top of both of them. So cable's good. We're going to thread the throttle cable into Euromosi. And we're going to go ahead and run it all the way down just so we have enough slack to work with. Cable's all the way in. We're going to grab our other parts. So here we have the shaft and the thumb lever. So we're just going to get the thumb lever installed first. We're just going to tighten down one screw just so we can push that up through the assembly. So I've got all the set screws loosened up. So we might just tighten one down for now. And then we're going to take our chain lube and we're going to get both needle bearings. So one in the top, one in the bottom. Put a little bit on that one. And then we're going to put our brass washer, slide it down in there. Go ahead and get our arm wrapped around the cable. So there's our washer. And then we're going to put the arm on. And then our set screw, no Loctite on that one, it doesn't need it. And we're just going to snug it up. Now we're going to check our cable for play. You don't want to take all the play out of the cable up near your hand because that's the one you're going to be using on the trail. So we're going to take as much out as we can down by the throttle body and then set that lock nut. That way we only have to use just a little bit of our play up near the handlebars. So out there on the trail, cable gets a little bit loose, then we can always have plenty of room to adjust it on the bars. So now we're going to kind of get it close to where we want to lock it. Video, here's the finished product. So kind of just give you a walk around. Gold chain. I do have a new net for this. We'll put that on next time. But little walk around. So Rossier exhaust, especially the carbon tip, it looks really good on there. And I did the gray, kind of blend in just a little bit. And you can see we rubbed it down with alcohol, so we already got some good color going on. So I actually forgot to film an outro for this video. This is a couple days after the race. Definitely feeling it. Bike did good, but you can see that it's after the race. There's a couple bumps and bruises on there, and I didn't get to ride the quad before we went out there, so that was like a big no-no, but it was more curiosity than anything. I was really curious. It was an A-class GNCC rider that had it before, and I really just want to see what somebody else's complete setup does. What the shock, the shock is, it's actually high. I knew the ride height was a little bit high for me. So whenever I sit on it, it's actually like 8.5 at the pegs, which is extremely high. I saw that. I knew what I was getting myself into. Also, it has LTR spindles on the front. So these billet spindles, but you can see the ears are turned all the way down. So if you don't know what that means, it means the bike doesn't really, it's more straight line than anything. The bike doesn't really cut. I saw this, I was like, hey, it's LTR spindles. I've never rode them before on a YFZ. Let's just see how it does. And you can see we got some bruises. So it happens. So now that I'm back home, definitely setting the right height, get my caster right, adjust those spindles. Set all the damping up. We're going to probably get at least 2 test rides in before the next race for sure. And that's all going to be testing. Bring all my tools, bring something level to sit the quad on, and really get it tuned out. That way it'll cut a little bit better. But you'll have to see that in the next video, so stick around. If you made it to the end of this one, appreciate you. So consider subscribing. Check out our Instagram, check out our Facebook, and if you see any of the parts on this quad that you do like, feel free to message me on Facebook, Instagram. I'm a dealer for pretty much everybody.